Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That same hour they got up and they returned to Jerusalem, and they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon." Yeah, let's go there. On our daily walk, with the dog, without the dog, with our housemates, by ourselves, whatever. Let's go there. Let's go to "The Lord is risen indeed." Let's go to that joy, because it's so real and it's so important and it's so meaningful. Let's go to that joy, because if we're going to walk 7 miles out and 7 miles back, let's walk to joy. And there are lots of joys we can walk towards. It's just that we have to start where we are on this road to Emmaus. We have to join these 2 disciples somewhere true and honest. Right? You know, they said, "But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel." Yes, yeah, we had hoped. We had hoped that this journey would not be so challenging, that the virus would be contained, that it would not be so contagious, that it would not be so lethal when caught. Oh yeah, we had hoped. I mean, think of all the places we say we had hope, but we had hoped. We say it as we are gathering the things left at the ICU. We say it as we learn of the second overdose. We say it when someone has wandered off without a coat during a winter storm because they don't remember about coats or about winter anymore. So much of a life of faith is asserting that he is risen, even when it doesn't seem possible that anyone could have risen, because death, after all, is clearly the end. We focus so much on he is risen that we don't acknowledge how much faith it takes to say, "But we had hoped." Now that our grocery stores are segregated again, not by race, but by medical vulnerability. Now that our neighbors are running a marathon not in downtown Boston, but through local roads with only friends to cheer them on from a safe distance. Now that we are actively asking people to die alone without their family holding their hand. Now that that is our reality. Perhaps the part of our faith we need to lean on is not the he is risen part. Perhaps the part we need to lean on is the "but we had hoped" part. Because Cleopas and his buddy were walking in faith. They were mulling over what had happened in Jerusalem. They were coming to terms with the reality that this is not what they had signed up for. That this was not the world they had been trying to build. They had hoped for something completely different from what they had gotten. And yet their faith led them to listen to a stranger telling the whole story of Scripture. From Moses on down, from Genesis through the prophets to the story of the Messiah. They listened to the whole story again, with new ideas lifted up, with new emphasis that helped explain how even now, when what they had hoped for had not come to pass, God was with them. Because God was always with them. Their faith led them to do one of the crazy things that Jesus was always doing. They ate with a stranger. Not because they believed Jesus was risen, but because they had hoped so much for a different outcome, for something other than the cross and persecution. Those disciples on the road to Emmaus had so hoped that something else was going to happen. But if this rotten reality was what they had, then they were going to do what Jesus taught them. They were going to share what they had. They were going to break a common loaf with each other. They were going to recognize the miracle of the loaves and the fishes by using a language that Jesus himself had used back then. That he took, that he blessed, that he broke, that he gave. If we want to get to He is risen, sometimes we just have to start with, but we had hoped. We have to start in the dust of the road, and we have to accept hospitality from a stranger, and then we have to offer hospitality to a stranger. Now, maybe right now we're not going to share actual pizza with anyone who isn't living under the same roof. But we can share a good laugh when someone makes a dog video that's pretty funny. We can share a beautiful piece of art that someone made because the human spirit had so hoped for something different. We can cut our political leaders some slack, and we can hold them accountable at the same time, because Jesus did both and did it with love. Sure, I want to get to He is risen. It's just that I need to accept where I'm starting from. And for today, that is just, but we had hoped. Because there is faith all along that journey, from beginning to end.